podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The Two-Footed Podcast is brought to you by EPLindex.com and our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider. A virtual privacy network allows you to go online, change your location, access things you're geo-blocked from, while keeping your data safe. So, as an example, if you are a UK expat and want access to BBC iPlayer to watch Match of the Day, or ITV Hub, or all four, but you get that message that says this content is not available in your location, a Liberty Shield VPN gets you around that block, allows you to watch whatever you want on those services while also keeping your data safe. And it goes further than that. It allows you to open up Netflix's entire library by just changing your IP address. Liberty Shield is the #1 rated VPN provider on Trustpilot with 5-star ratings across the board. So go to libertyshield.com right now, use the code EPL25 and get either the hardware package or the software package. The hardware package is a router that you plug into your existing router, and any item you want to change the IP address on, be it your phone or your television, you connect that to the new Liberty Shield router. All other items can remain connected to your existing router. There's also a software package which is instantly downloadable to your device and you can get using straight away. Again, libertyshield.com, EPL25 for 25% off at checkout. We're also brought to you by Home of Hopcroft, a giftware and homeware company located in Scotland but shipping worldwide. Check out homeofhopcroft.co.uk and do check out the EPL Index and Anfield Index shops, which you'll find on Etsy. Use the codes EPL10 or RED10 for 10% off at checkout. And lastly, do remember to check out A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. That podcast is on this feed before every Premier League match week. And then the EPL Roundtable, hosted by Kevin DeVries, on its own EPL Roundtable feed. So just search EPL Roundtable in your podcast device. And that's out after every match week. Now, on with the show. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Thursday. It is the 29th of February. Hope you're all well and hope your team is still in the FA Cup. Mine is last night, Liverpool 3, Southampton 0. Lewis Koumas and 2 from Jayden Danns. 2 kids that one was making his debut, one was making his third appearance, having made his debut, well, this time last week, really. Liverpool rode their luck in the first half, but once they made a couple of changes and brought Alexis McAllister into midfield in particular, they were very much in control, having already gone 1-up through Koumas in the first half. The Dan's first goal is exceptional. His second goal is the sign of someone with a real poacher's mentality. You've got to be happy if you're Jurgen Klopp. You've got injuries all over the place. You've got games coming left and right, and you've got academy kids stepping up in important games, such as the cup final at the weekend and a cup match here, and getting you over the finish line. And for Jurgen Klopp, this must be what he's dreamt of for years, because he's put a lot of his time and energy into doing the right things with Liverpool's academy in, cooperation with people like Alex Inglethorpe, who's the academy director and the one ultimately responsible for the players the academy is producing. Obviously, Pep and Linders and Vitor Matas, both development coaches, both responsible for the pathways for these young players into the first team. It's a really exciting time for Liverpool. Last night, you had Conor Bradley, Caoimhín Kelleher starting goal. He is an academy graduate, but he is now 25. But Conor Bradley is 20. and pretty fresh out of the academy. Jarrell Quansah is 20 or 21, fresh out of the academy. James McConnell and Bobby Clark have played regularly in the academy this year. They're both teenagers. Lewis Kumas is a teenager playing regularly in the academy this year. Off the bench, you had Cade Gordon, another teenager playing in the academy. Jaden Dans, another teenager playing in the academy. Trey Nioni made his debut, 16 years of age, playing regularly for the 18s and the 21s. And then you had Callum Scanlon, who didn't get on. That's another academy player. And Amara Nallo, a young defender brought in from West Ham in the summer. I think he's 16 or 17. But again, playing regularly in the academy. So for Liverpool, this is really exciting. That's 10 players plus Kelleher, plus Elliott, who did play in the academy, though he was more or less brought to be a first-team player, who've played in Liverpool's academy. That is, for a fifth-round tie, like, whatever about doing it in the third round against, with no disrespect intended, York City or Kidderminster or whoever, to do it in the fifth round against the Southampton team that are a good championship team going for promotion, admittedly, with a number of changes of their own. Like, they did play a heavily rotated team too. Bednarak and Lumley are regular starters. Charles is a semi-regular starter. Aribo is a semi-regular starter. Mara is a semi-regular starter. Rothwell is in on loan. He's had some injury issues. Edozie and Suleiman are young players who don't start every week, but they have contributed quite a bit for Southampton this season. That's a big deal for Liverpool to go into a game like that with Joe Gomez playing out of position in midfield as well and still get that result. So everybody connected to the club will be very, very happy. They will take on Manchester United in the quarterfinals. United won, Nottingham Forest 0 at the City Ground. Casemiro with the only goal of the game. A fairly even game. United definitely had the better of it early on, and it felt like Forest grew into it, in part because United just weren't very good. United went pretty strong, about as strong as they were able to go last night, and really did struggle. Their goal is controversial. It's very, very similar to the goal that Liverpool had disallowed. In fact, it's more blatantly a foul because, number one, Varane is offside in the same way Endo is offside. But whereas Endo just stood still, Varane actively moves towards and shoves the player who falls to the ground. The excuse is that that player wasn't going to get into the dropping zone. Well, that's subjective. It's completely subjective. So how can you say with any certainty? But regardless, United are through. They will host Liverpool most likely in the 4 p.m. kickoff on Sunday, the 17th of March, which is obviously St. Patrick's Day. Wolves won, Brighton 0. Mario Lemina scored the only goal of the game on 2 minutes after really, really poor defensive work by Brighton. Pupion, young kid making his debut at right back, got done for pace down the left. Lewis Dunk came over. I'm not sure where Van Hecke was. Lewis Dunk came over. He obviously doesn't move very quickly. They tried to close down the cross. They couldn't. It comes in, and I genuinely don't know what Jason Steele is attempting to do. Like, it's a little bit too high for you to catch, so why are you trying to catch it? He is, without question, the worst goalkeeper playing for a Premier League team. And most teams have backups who are better than him. And I'm not trying to be funny saying that. I that's genuinely what I believe. If we look at the Premier League table, Alisson and Queven Kelleher are both better than him. Ederson and Ortega are both better. Raya and Ramsdale are both better. Martinez is better. Olsen is not. But they're about even. Olsen's probably about even with him. Vicario is better. I think Fraser Forster is a better goalkeeper. Steele is better with his feet. Onana, despite his many flaws, is better, and I think Beyinder's better as well. Areola is better, and I would rather have Fabianski. Sa is better. I'd take Steele over Button. Pope is clearly better. Dubravka is better. Petrovic is better. I would say Sanchez is a better goalkeeper as well. Bernd Leno was better. Can't think for the life of me who Fulham's backup is. Both Dean Henderson and Sam Johnston of Crystal Palace are better. Neto is better, as is Mark Travers. Pickford is better. Is João Virginia still the backup Everton goalkeeper? If so, he's better. Flecken is better. Strakosha is better. The two Forest goalkeepers, Turner and the Greek guy whose name is escaping me, they're both better. Kaminsky's better. Don't know can't think who their backup is. James Trafford is better. So's Muric. Gerbic is better. And I would say Foderingham is about the same. But there's however many goalkeepers have been through there. 35 who are better than Jason Steele. I'm not being funny. There's a reason that when Jason Steele was at Sunderland, he was struggling to make the grade. And they were in League One. There's a reason for it. There's a reason why he was at Middlesbrough for so long. And yet, in his last season there, lost his spot. He was very, very average for Blackburn. He was Sunderland were in the Championship. He was a backup there in the Championship. There's a reason he was at Brighton for 4 years and played 9 games. They didn't have great goalkeepers. I've seen people today question, again, De Zerbi's defensive setup. It's not the setup, it's the individuals. If you're going to hit him for something, that's what you hit him for. The decisions he makes in terms of who he plays. He's got 2 goalkeepers there. Bart Verbruggen and Jason Steele. Bart Verbruggen is just flat out a better goalkeeper at 21 than Jason Steele has ever been. So there's something to hit him on. Jason Steele's played 18 games in all competitions. That's 18 games where you're starting out with a disadvantage. In defence, you've got Milner playing 20 times this season. He's not good enough. Adam Lallana's played 22 times this season. He's not good enough. And I don't care what Brighton fans say. Danny Welbeck is not good enough. When you've got João Pedro and Evan Ferguson, unless both of them are out, Danny Welbeck shouldn't be playing. And if they're both out, but Enciso is fit, Enciso should be starting, even if it's at the 9. This over-reliance on these players is what's hurting Brighton. Now, they're still having a decent season. Of course they are. They're 7th or 8th in the league. They're still in Europe. They've obviously just gone out of the Cup. Still a good season. By Brighton standard, a really good season. But it could be better. And part of the reason that your defence looks shaky, part of the reason that your overall team structure looks shaky, is that you have these lads at your club that are taking up a chunky wage bill and are not good enough. And it's not, I don't want to hear that they're there for experience. You've got Lewis Dunk. You've got Joel Veltman. You've got Solly March. I know he's injured, but he's still at the club. He's still actively around the place. And you've got Pascal Gross. If there's not enough leadership and experience in that group, well, then they're not the players that I thought they were. Because all of them are model pros. And all of them are vocal on the pitch. And they're the ones that should be setting the standard and enabling these young players, not taking the minutes off these young players. There's no justification at all for Milner, Lallana, and Welbeck to have made a combined 65 appearances this season. None. And they have returned you 4 goals. Now, Milner's been playing fullback. That's fair enough. Lallana plays as a 10 and Welbeck plays a 9 or a 10. 4 goals. And again, there's absolutely no justification for Jason Steele playing 18 games. You've got a better goalkeeper out on loan in Kjell Sherpen than Jason Steele. That's where I would hit De Zerbi. That's the one thing that has pushed him down for me in terms of looking for a replacement for Klopp at Liverpool, is his desire to always have dross in his team. And those players are dross, respectfully. Wolves move on, and they will take on Coventry, who hammered Maidstone in the quarter-final. That's a lovely Midlands derby. Chelsea 3, Leeds United 2. Mateo Joseph put Leeds 1 up on 8 minutes. Nicholas Jackson equalised. Mikhailo Mudryk put Chelsea 2-1 up on 37. Joseph equalised on 59. But then Conor Gallagher won the game for Chelsea, I think undeservedly, in the 90th minute. Leeds gave them everything they could handle, matched them in all phases of the game. Possessions about even. Leeds had more shots. Chelsea had more on target. Chelsea fans very excited to tell us that the sun is shining on Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez after their poor showing at the weekend when Wataru Endo and Alexis McAllister stole their lunch money. I have bad news for them. Number one, they were playing against a championship team, which included a player in midfield who's 17. And number two, that 17-year-old was the best player on the pitch. I've been telling people for the longest time that Archie Gray is the next great English midfielder. And last night was evidence of why I think that's the case. He was absolutely brilliant in all phases of the game. Absolutely brilliant. Composed under pressure, comfortable on the ball, good passing, clever passing, always making the right decision. His ball carrying was good, but defensively he was really, really good. A couple of great chase down tackles, a pressing tackle that led to the first goal. He is a sensation. He's played most of this season at right back. He's never under a 7 out of 10. He is frequently an 8 out of 10 or better. And that's out of position. Last night, he was a 9 out of 10 in midfield. He was so, so good. He is going to be, I think, one of the great English midfielders. He is so special. He's 17. Like, it's ludicrous how good he is at that age. He doesn't turn 18 for the 2 weeks. But what a player. What an absolutely outstanding player. And if Gareth Southgate has anything about him, he'll look at him for a spot at the Euros and get him into the England mix early, get him around that squad. He won't be overawed. He won't be starstruck. He'll just slot in and do his work. He's going to be so, so special. Chelsea will take on Leicester in the quarterfinals. Leicester obviously beat Bournemouth to secure their spot. So what we have is Manchester City versus Newcastle, Chelsea versus Leicester, Wolves versus Coventry, and Manchester United versus Liverpool. That is our quarterfinal draw for the FA Cup. Projecting ahead, City, Chelsea, Wolves, and Liverpool as your Final Four. And you know that what's going to happen is Liverpool versus City and Chelsea versus Wolves. And then most probably a Liverpool versus Chelsea final that will go either to penalties or very, very late in extra time. We'll take a break. When we come back, it is Listeners' Questions Day. So see you after this. Right, welcome back. So, Listeners' Questions. The first one wasn't so much a question as a request from Mark Roberts to talk about this new thing where players are cutting holes in the back of their socks and whether it annoys me. And it does. It very fucking much does annoy me. I don't really understand the need for it. These are not young men with massive calves other than the odd exception like Jack Grealish. I don't see the need to cut the holes. Surely the socks being tight is a good thing, acts like a compression sock, which is good for your circulation. Conor Gallagher at the weekend had holes everywhere. And he's got chicken legs. He looks like he skips leg day every week. So I'm not really sure why he needs to do it. I don't understand. Like, I remember what football socks used to be like. Really thick, really uncomfortable. The material was horrible against your leg. It was like a cheap woolen synthesized nonsense. And they were really uncomfortable. But you had to wear them, and you had to wear them pulled up. And back in the day, you had to wear proper shin guards, not like these little sanitary towel things that they're wearing now. And it really bugs the piss out of me. There's absolutely no reason to be tearing holes in your socks. It's bad enough that we see so many players who have cut the foot off the sock and are wearing like a normal white sock with the leg part of their kit sock down to it. Like, that bugs me as well. I really don't understand it. How was it that players with far less advancements on much lower caliber pitches, with much heavier footballs, wearing boots that were not super light and, you know, contoured to your foot and all the rest, one size fits all type of job. How was it that they were just able to go out in a pair of football socks at the time, which again, much thicker, much less comfortable than what the players are offered now, and they weren't cutting holes in them or cutting the feet off them or doing any of that crap? It really, and I know it's a little bit unhinged, but it really, really annoys me. And I'd love to see a manager just come in and say, you know what, we don't do that here. We're not doing that here. We're going to wear the kit as given. And I'd love to see officials go, you're wearing red socks, but why can I see so much white? You used to be allowed to wear tape on your socks. Most referees used to insist that it be either black or the color of the sock. You'd get some fancy lad that would have robbed some yellow electrical tape out of his dad's shed, and he'd have them round his red and white sock or whatever color the sock was. And you'd have referees go up and go, take that off. You don't need that. Or get black or get one of the colors of your sock. You're not having yellow. It's just, the game has become so soft, and this, to me, is part of that. Oh, my feet aren't as comfortable in the football sock. What? Like, you're already been given every possible advantage on and off the pitch. The jerseys are much more lightweight now, and they're much more comfortable material. Everybody will remember the type of football shirts you would have worn for your local team back in the day. The ones that came with the 5,000 wash guarantee. you could pull and drag them in all directions and you were never going to rip them. And on a cold day, and they'd rub against your skin and they'd be really uncomfortable. And when you'd start to sweat, the shirt would start to sting you. Dreadful. And the shorts were practically made out of leather. They were that tough. And now everything's just so pampered to these players. But the sock thing annoys me so much. And I don't know why it's allowed. It's part of the kit. We don't allow players to alter their shorts, to alter their shirts. So why are we allowing them to alter the socks? And again, it's a minor thing that doesn't really affect me one way or another in my day-to-day life, but it really annoys me, so therefore it does affect me. It really bugs the life out of me. And I can't be the only one. Now, maybe it's just a generational thing. Maybe it's just because I'm an old man and what I like to do is sit out on my porch and scream at kids to get off the lawn and shout at the clouds and stuff like that. Maybe it's that. But I ask you to join me in this crusade and banish the tears in the socks, which are just ridiculous, and the white thing. No. Like, if that's so much of an issue, surely the kit makers can alter the sock, the part on the foot, to make it more comfortable. Surely they can do that. The cutting holes thing is just a nonsense. It genuinely is just a nonsense. The only player in England that I can really think of that has very large calves comparative to his size is Jack Grealish. And he doesn't cut holes in his socks. Now, he wears his socks very, very low. And he doesn't really wear shin guards. But do that then. Do what Grealish does instead of this nonsense of tearing holes. As if, what's this meant to represent? Are you telling us that you're actually the Incredible Hulk and such is the muscle mass in your legs that you have to tear these massive holes? Like, I'm literally looking at a picture here of Conor Gallagher. And he doesn't have massive calves. And yet there's an enormous hole ripped in the back of his sock and then another big one just below that. And there's no reason for it. No reason at all. I want managers to take ownership of this and stop this ridiculous practice. That's what I want. Now, moving on. Matt JT, what do you think is a time frame for getting a sporting director and then a manager for Liverpool? How does that impact contract renewals for some of the important squad players? And how will the Euros and Copa America and American Summer Tour impact transfers and integrating the team in a new system? So that is difficult because you've got these two major international competitions that will eat up some of pre-season. Now, the Euros will run, let's get some dates up here, from June the 14th to July 14th. Now, that means players will be back because you'll give most players a couple of weeks off after that. Some players will be returning late July from the Euros. Others obviously will go out earlier and they'll be back quicker. The Copa America, the dates of it are June 20th to July 14th. And obviously it's been played in America this summer as a test run, basically, for the World Cup. Games will be played in Arlington, Texas, in Atlanta, in Austin, in Charlotte, in East Rutherford, New Jersey at MetLife, which hopefully they will have put down a real football pitch and not that horrendous turf thing they've got. Houston, SoFi Stadium, Santa Clara, which is Levi Stadium, home of the 49ers. State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. I think that used to be the University of Phoenix Stadium, didn't it? It's the Cardinals' home place. Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Arrowhead in Kansas, Children's Mercy Park in Kansas. So 2 stadiums in Kansas getting games. The Hard Rock Stadium in Miami and Inter & Co. Stadium in Orlando. So quite a lot of stadiums being used for a competition that only has 16 teams in it. But some stadiums will only get, a handful of games anyway. So both competitions end the same day. And that will have definitely an impact on training time and implementing a new system. But there should still be enough there to get going with early on. And look, players are very adaptable. And for Liverpool, let's just say that I get my way and it's Ruben Amorim. You look at Liverpool's squad and there's already a lot of hand in glove fits for how he's going to want to play. Darwin works perfectly as a lone number 9. Dominic Szoboszlai has played that one of 2 attacking midfield / withdrawn striker roles before. He played it at Leipzig. Mo Salah is one of the greatest players to ever live. He will be able to fit into that shape. Alexis McAllister has played in a double pivot, so he'll be fine there. Trent Alexander-Arnold has played as a wing-back before for England, and it will play to his natural strengths to be that bit more advanced anyway. And Amorim will find ways to use him. Andy Robertson, if he's part of the first 11 next season, which hopefully he won't be, but he might be, he has played as a wing-back for Scotland for years. Virgil van Dijk has played in the back 3 for the Netherlands for years and is perfectly suited to it. Ibou Konate has played in a back 3 at Leipzig in the past, so he can fit in. And Alisson is Alisson. So, other players, Curtis Jones could play in a double pivot with Turo. Endo's got huge experience playing in a double pivot. Joe Gomez can play left side of a 3. The players should be fairly malleable and fairly able to fit into the shape and the system. And his style of play is not a huge departure from Jurgen Klopp. Alonso, on the other hand, the players will fit largely the same places, but his style is very, very different to how Jurgen plays. So I think for him, it would be more difficult given the lack of, a clear preseason. In terms of timelines, I think we'll hear about a sporting director in the next fortnight. But I think the first big one is going to be sporting CEO. I think that's what they're chasing Michael Edwards for, to give him basically the remit of running the entire football side of the club, which is the role that Mike Gordon has had for the past decade or more. Well, I think it's about 12, 13 years since Gordon took over running the football side when they realised that Ian Ayre was inept. So Mike Gordon wants to step aside, has already done so once and then come back because he was needed. He wants to move back to America. He wants to be closer to his family. He wants to spend time with his family. And he also wants to enjoy the spoils of his labour. And he's also got other interests that he'd like to, I'd say, be more hands-on with. So he'd like to step back and just, enjoy his role as an owner of the club. And he will probably take on a directorship of the club. So you'll have that. Then Edwards would take on his role, which is perfect. So I think that's the first one they're looking to make happen. After that, then Edwards, I would imagine, would make the decision on sporting director. I'd imagine he will have a huge input in that. Now, that could well mean it's Julian Ward, which is a very straightforward move. He's been at the club he had been at the club for years. He's well known, he's well liked, and he's good at what he does. And he's got an existing understanding of working under Michael Edwards. Now, if it's not Julian Ward, it could be somebody else. It could be Thiago Pinto. It could be Tim Steedten. It could be anybody, really. It could be Paul Mitchell. One name that's out there is Richard Hughes. I would hope it's not him because he didn't do a very good job at Bournemouth. But then maybe under Edwards, when he's just more looking at processes and stuff, maybe he would be better as long as he's not the decision maker. Very, very sketchy recruitment record has Richard Hughes. So I think we'll hear about Sporting CEO first. The Edwards thing yesterday was really interesting. Really, really interesting. The way the news kind of came out in layers. So my guess is we do that first, then Sporting Director. And I think they'll both be done maybe in the next month. Maybe by the end of March, we have decisions and announcements on those. Manager, I actually think it'll be the end of the season before it's publicly announced. And the reason for that is that the top two candidates are both in the middle of title races. And I don't think they will want any distractions that might cause the ground to shake under them at their existing clubs. Now, obviously, Leverkusen look comfortable at the top of the Bundesliga. They've got a significant gap, but they haven't been here before. And if they were to lose 2 on the bounce and draw 1, then all of a sudden Bayern are right on top of them. And even this Bayern team, who aren't very good, they're capable of stringing some wins together. So I'd imagine Alonso and Amram, who currently sits second with a game in hand. If you're looking for a good game to watch tonight, actually, Sporting versus Benfica in the first round of the Cup, worth your time. Amram, I mean, that's a title race that could go to the last day. So I think he'll want to focus on that as well and not have any distractions, any outside noise. So I do kind of feel like it will be summer before those get done, or that gets announced. In terms of contract renewals, I don't have too many concerns. Those are ongoing anyway. Those can be handled by other people. Like Billy Hogan is more than capable of handling a contract negotiation with Virgil. I don't foresee there being any issues with an extension for Virgil. I think that one gets done regardless. I don't think you'll find anybody who'd be coming in and going, oh no, we shouldn't give him a contract extension. He's the best centre-back in the world by a country mile. The same, I think, is true of Trent. You know, he's the club vice-captain. He's a local lad. He's come through the academy. He says he's living his dream. Why wouldn't he want to stay and be part of an exciting new generation? Now, there's been some rumour online that he might like to go to Real Madrid. Okay, you go to Real Madrid, you're playing right back and you're getting very little freedom. You will play within a box. So if that's what you want to do, okay, let's sit down with Real and work something out. But I don't think there's much chance of that. I think Trent might leave when he's like 29, 30. I could see him maybe wanting to go and test the water somewhere else, but I don't see it happening this summer or next. And then there's Mo. And I think that one is just going to be Mo's decision. If he wants to stay, the club will want to keep him. If he wants to go, he'll be sold. And I think it's as simple as that. And I don't think whoever comes in any of the roles is really going to impact Mo's thinking on that. Now, all the recent reporting from people that have, you know, contacts around Mo is that he wants to stay playing at the highest level. So that will rule out Saudi. So the only other option, if he doesn't want to stay at Liverpool, would really be PSG. And I just don't see him viewing the French league as a league that's really going to, you know, increase his legacy in the game. So I think Mo ends up staying as well. Isaac Gilding. Question for the pod. I've done a match it and gone on a holiday early this year. Work is clearly for the likes of yourself and Guy, not Carl and myself. Carl Matchett, I think he's had 4 holidays this year, or three into the 4th one coming up. It's a remarkable thing. While I'm away, I always keep an eye out for fake kits being sold in markets or similar, and I've quite a collection now. I'm in Cyprus, very, very nice, and need you to see and rank some of these outstanding bootleg LFC kits I've come across. Which is your favorite and which is one I should take home? By God, these are grim. Right, the blue one with the wavy white lines and the black collar and cuff is an atrocity. The black one with the kind of aqua and other colors, wavy lines and white and stuff, it's quite cool. I don't mind that one. You've got to get the Spider-Man one. There's absolutely no question. The Spider one, you've got to take home. I don't think it looks like the quality will be the best. It looks like the neck is very large, but the jersey itself is quite cool. That home kit, I reckon I could make that out of a pair of curtains. So I'd pass on that one. And then the last one with the dragons or the serpents or whatever, again, that's quite cool. Like, it's not a football shirt. It's clearly some sort of T-shirt that someone's just lobbed a Liverpool badge, a Nike badge, and a few other bits and bobs onto it. But it's quite cool. It's different. Do you know what? I'd actually say get it and the swirly one, like the wavy line one with the kind of aqua and red and white and all that. Looks a little bit like something Jackson Pollock or somebody might have painted. I'd say those would be my top 2. Then the Spider-Man one. The blue and wavy white line thing would be my 3rd. But that home kit is atrocious. Like, the only thing you could do if someone gave you that is burn it. You find a barrel, some kindling, some lighter fluid, and set that thing ablaze. And while you're at it, grab the person that gave it to you and lob them in as well. That's a scandal. Dreadful, dreadful, dreadful stuff. But the other 2 are cool. Yeah, no, there's 3 of them that are cool. 3 of them that are cool. So, yeah. Dragony, serpenty thing, multicolored wavy lines with the black kind of background, and the Spider-Man one. Those 3 are above the lot for me. Right. This is not a question, but it kind of fits in to the questions. So I saw this earlier on. You may have heard that Paul Pogba has been banned from playing football for 4 years following his failed drug test. So I saw this tweet. It's from Rory Jennings. So you can imagine it's going to be terrible. Sad day for football today. Paul Pogba was exceptional. One of the best players of his generation, in the top 10 French players of all time, was one of the most natural and artistic players to have ever played the game. I made this video about him. So the video is probably crap, but I won't be watching it. But let's unpack the tweet. So let's go in reverse order. One of the most natural and artistic players to have ever played the game. Now, the artistic side annoys the piss out of me. This is the same nonsense, this aesthetic garbage where people think you have to look and play a certain way. like when you used to get moronic individuals on crappy podcasts trying to claim that Riyad Mahrez was better than Mo Salah because he was easier on the eye, or that Eden Hazard and his pure football made him better than Mo Salah, despite Mo Salah having absolutely wiped the floor with Eden Hazard's career. So the artistic thing is nonsense and it's completely irrelevant. But I will say, one of the most natural, absolutely, one of the most naturally gifted players that the game has seen, not ever, but certainly the last 25 years. Because ever you start getting back into your Ruud Gullits and your Maradonas and, you know, just reams and reams of players like Zidane and Rivaldo and Baggio and all these kind of players that are just much more naturally gifted than Paul Pogba. But Paul Pogba, of the last 20 years, certainly one of the most naturally gifted players. That is the only thing that he says in this tweet that is even slightly accurate. Top 10 French players of all time. We're going to get into that. We'll come back to that. One of the best players of his generation. So, Paul Pogba is 30 years of age. Born in 1993. So, his generation really will be players born in 91 to 95. I think that's fair. You know, a 5-year span, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95. I think that's fair to call his generation. So let's have a look at that. So players born, we'll start in 91 and we'll move on from there. Kevin De Bruyne, Virgil van Dijk, Antoine Griezmann, Thiago Alcantara, N'Golo Kante. Well, they're all far better than Paul Pogba. 1992, you've got Mohamed Salah, just to get started with. I mean, the gulf between Salah and Pogba cannot really be measured. You've got Heung-min Son, you've got Neymar, you've got 3 goalkeepers in Marc-Andre Ter Stegen, Thibaut Courtois, and Alisson Becker, who were all much and Emi Martinez, but forgetting him for a second, the other 3, all much better at what they do than Paul Pogba was at what he did. Casemiro, David Alaba, Marco Verratti, Sadio Mane, all much better players than Paul Pogba. Now, his own year of birth, obviously, like I said, is 1993. Harry Kane, Ederson, Jan Oblak, Raphael Varane. They're all better at what they do than Paul Pogba was at what he did. We move to 94. Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, Marquinhos, Raheem Sterling. I'm sorry, they're all better than Paul Pogba. They just are. And then finally, 1995. Now, I'm not saying they're more talented than him. I'm saying that they're better than him. 95, Joshua Kimmich. Jack Grealish, better push. Serge Gnabry, his best was better than Pogba's best. Not many from that year. But I've still named a lot of players from the other years that were better than Paul Pogba. So no, not one of the best players of his generation. That's just a 5-year gap. And all I did there, there's no thought into that. I haven't actually sat down and looked at extensive lists of players from those years. I've literally just gone on Transfer Market and looked up most valuable player born each year. So there'll be players that are retired. For example, Eden Hazard. Eden Hazard's a much better player than Paul Pogba. He was born in 91. So And I have issues with Hazard and how he treated his career, but a much better player than Paul Pogba. So no, certainly not one of the best players of his generation. Paul Pogba was exceptional. When? When was he exceptional? He was very, very good at Juventus when he was 21, 22. His last 2 years at Juventus were very good. Very good. His first year at United was good. His third year at United was very good. The other 4 years at United were dreadful. And his first 2 years at Juve, he was hit and miss because he was a young player. Some weeks he'd look very good. Some weeks he'd look like football was new to him. He could often look like a giraffe standing on ice with his legs slipping and sliding all over the place as he learned how to play the game. Because he'd been a very highly regarded young player at United in their academy. But when he stepped up to senior level, he looked way out of his depth. He looked considerably out of his depth for most of his first year at Juve. Second year, he started to find his way, but again, he'd have runs of bad games. He was, up until his last season at Juve, the fourth best midfielder at Juve. And only the injuries to Marchisio elevated him to number 3. He was never the best midfielder at Juve. Vidal and Pirlo were better. And Marchisio in those early years. And in that final year, you could maybe say he was the second best after Vidal, because Pirlo had declined and Marchisio was dealing with some injury issues that slowed him down. But when was he exceptional? Oh, well, he won the World Cup. Loads of players have won the World Cup. Doesn't make them all exceptional. He won a World Cup when N'Golo Kante and Blaise Matuidi did all the running for him. But let's not forget his performances in the 2016 Euros, especially the final, when he was dreadful. Let's not forget those. The idea of Paul Pogba has always been massively blown out of proportion when compared to the reality of Paul Pogba. Now, top 10 French players of all time has properly spun my head. And it's actually infuriated me because he just doesn't come anywhere close to the top 10 French players of all time. So, pulling up some lists here. And we'll look through them. And I guarantee you we're going to come out with at least 20. He's not in the top 25. Now, I need to sit down and put some thought into it, but he's not in the top 25. If we just look at the list of the most appearances, Hugo Lloris, better than him. Lilian Thuram, miles better than him. He's a better player than Giroud. Griezmann, miles better. Henry, it's not even measurable. Desailly, it's not measurable. Zidane, it's not measurable. Vieira, it's not measurable. Deschamps had a better career than him, but Pogba was probably a better footballer. Benzema, it's not measurable. Laurent Blanc, it's not measurable. Lizarazu was better than him. Then we look at goal scorers. Jean-Pierre Papin, considerably better. Just Fontaine, considerably better. David Trezeguet, considerably better. Michel Platini, it's not even measurable. That list doesn't include N'Golo Kante. Neither of them do. Much better than him. Like, Kylian Mbappe, much better. Much better. How is he trying to justify making that claim? Here's a list that someone put together on 442, right? Kante, better. Deschamps was better for France overall, but Pogba was a better footballer. Frank Ribery, much better. Desailly, clear. Lilian Thuram, clear. Eric Cantona, much better. Patrick Vieira, much better. Platini, like I said, unmeasurable. Henry, unmeasurable. Zidane, unmeasurable. Like, there's just no argument in the world to be made that Paul Pogba even sniffed the top 10 for France. Here's another list. Benzema, John Tigana, much better than Paul Pogba. Jean-Pierre Papin, Lilian Thuram, Yves Fontaine, Raymond Kopa, Kylian Mbappe, Thierry Henry, Michel Platini, and Zizou. Paul Pogba is not a top 25 French player of all time. And limiting it to 25 is doing him a favor. It really is doing him a favor. It really winds me up when people say stupid things like that. And that fella is guilty of it all the time. Like, it's just such nonsense. And it's so disrespectful to the players. And all you're really doing when you make a statement like that is saying, well, I don't actually know anything about football. So here's my hot take based on my very limited knowledge, which extends back only about 10 years. Alan Giris, much better. Like, it's not even funny how many players France have had that were better than Paul Pogba. Let's look at their squads from a couple of the 80s tournaments. Luis Fernandez, much better than Paul Pogba. Where's that Euro 1984 squads? Right, we'll just look at the teams that actually won stuff for them. Patrick Battiston, probably a bit of push. Fernandez better. Platini better. Giroud better. Tigana better. Rochetu better, without question. Bernard Lecomte, probably not. Okay, so that's that one. So there's 4 or 5. 1998 World Cup squads. France were in Group C. Lizarazu better. Vieira better. Blanc better. Yuri Djorkaeff better. Desailly better. Zinedine Zidane better. Robert Pires better. Thierry Henry. Lilian Thuram, David Trezeguet. I mean, you could make a very strong argument for Manuel Petit as well. A very, very strong argument. Fabian Barthez, better as well. Euro 2000 squads. Here we go. It was much the same squad. Nicolas Anelka. Nicolas Anelka is another one that kind of wasted his talent. Christian Karembeu is a better player than Paul Pogba. Just was. These players weren't as talented as him. They were just better than him. Like, even in the World Cup squad that he was in, that won in 2008 and 18. Like, where does he even rank in that squad? Because, like, Hugo Lloris, for me, a better goalkeeper than Pogba was a midfielder in his prime. Varane, a better centre-back than Pogba was a midfielder. Griezmann was better. Mbappe was better. Kante is better. I mean, he's not even top 5 in that squad. In that squad. So where on earth do you get the notion that he's top 10 all time? It must be something in the name Rory. Because does the other fella, Rory Talk Shite, who's also a dreadful set of lads. This fella's even worse. Right, go to break, back with the gossip. See you soon. Right, welcome back. You have to be wary of Fabrizio Romano. It is worth taking a critical standpoint towards the transfer king of them all, Fabrizio Romano, as per a commentator on Tipsbladet, which I believe is a Norwegian or Danish outlet. Tipsbladet has seen documentation of how the company behind Fabrizio Romano are trying to make deals to be mentioned with football clubs, including Danish clubs. Fabrizio Romano is known as the transfer journalist, #1 worldwide, and it can't be denied that the Italian almost always hits right when revealing a player is about to join another club. Now, he's been wrong a few times, but here we go. This position has given Fabrizio Romano a cult status among football fans all over the world, but it is worth to be wary of the Italian, and not least the machinery behind the scenes, which has become part of the huge following of him on social media. Wednesday, Fabrizio brought a story that Rooney Bargey, currently being kept out of play at FC Copenhagen due to contract negotiations, and because of the fact that he's been left out, the player has no intentions of dialogue in regarding to a contract extension to his existing deal, which runs out in 2025. The club has informed Tipsbladet that they outrightly reject any truth of this story. Exactly the story about Rooney is a good example of something people should pay attention to and bear in mind when they see the stories of Fabrizio Romano on social media. He has been dealing with the transfer market and everything. According to a commentator on Tipsbladet, Trollsbagger Torgensen, who has been dealing with the transfer market and everything going on behind the scenes for more than 15 years. And he thinks it's time to sound the alarm bell. He says, I know Fabrizio Romano is hailed like a god on social media. I just have to say that very often he gets his information from player agents and turns out to be the mouthpiece of their agenda. For this specific case, the Rooney Bargey case, it very much looks like the entourage of the player wants to send out a message to put pressure on FC Copenhagen. It will be very interesting to see how this case will unfold towards the summer. Either he extends with the club or the club will have to sell him, or else his market value will drop in the coming market sessions, only 1 year until expiry. But I am refusing to believe the coach does not select the best team possible. Clubs can pay to be mentioned. Furthermore, Tipsbladet says that they have seen evidence that shows that the company behind Fabrizio Romano has contacted clubs, including Danish clubs, with an offer where they can pay to be mentioned. Clubs can pay a fee to the company behind Fabrizio, and the journalist will then make sure that the player and club will be mentioned on his stories, followed by 20 million people on Twitter and 27 million people on Instagram. This shows a great deal that the company behind Fabrizio Romano apparently tries to make partnerships with clubs. So everyone needs to stay alert when he breaks news on his platforms, because there's a commercial interest behind it. This can't be seen as journalism. It is a business where clubs and agents will need to pay for the publicity, and that can never be labeled as journalism. And I think that should be the lesson here. What might look like journalism is instead driven by pure commercial interests. Tipsbladet have been in contact with Fabrizio Romano, who does not want to appear for an interview. Folks, I have been telling you for the longest time that Fabrizio is A spoofer, and B, not a journalist, a social media influencer. Go back and look at the timeline of Fabrizio Romano. He first comes to the public awareness when he publishes on his Facebook page, not in any media outlet, on his personal Facebook page, an interview with Wesley Sneijder, then star midfielder of Inter Milan. An in-depth interview that gets thousands and hundreds of thousands of views. One problem, Wesley Sneijder never gave him an interview. He fabricated the entire thing. Both Wesley Sneijder and Inter Milan publicly demanded that he remove it, which he did eventually, but not when they asked. He used that as a springboard to go on Twitter, present himself as somebody with connections. He was obviously working for DiMarzio at the time. DiMarzio, another longtime spoofer. And he built himself a following through DiMarzio's contacts to what they were and through making things up. As he gained more followers, he made up more things. As he gained more followers, people began to look at his account and think, oh, he must be genuine. He has 100,000 followers. So those people then started to follow him as well. So his follower count started to snowball. And then he hit 1 million. And you'll remember he spent the entire summer of 2020 lying about the Jadon Sancho deal. Him, Christian Falk, and Tore Andre Flo lied relentlessly about that transfer. When nothing was happening, they had people believing there was heated negotiations going on nonstop. For 2 months, a deal that never came close to happening that summer. He gained 8 million followers in 12 months off the back of that. And then when he got to a certain point, he was able to start approaching agents and approaching clubs of a higher level. He'd already been doing it at lower level with, smaller agents and smaller clubs and getting himself these partnerships where he might, in some cases, do a transfer announcement, in some cases, push a narrative. It was always pushing narratives for the agents, but he was able to turn lying and spoofing and making things up into a big following, which snowballed into a bigger following, which snowballed into more lies and more followers. And then he has turned that into this. And this is where he goes to clubs and agents and they pay him to push narratives. And thankfully, it is now being made public because it's been known for ages. It's been known for absolute ages that this fella has been up to this. He is not a journalist. He's a social media influencer. And he's a bully as well. He's a bully who tries to use his minions and his army of underlings to attack people when they call him out. He steals stories from smaller journalists, and then he offers them a little bit of a partnership where they feed him information, and in return, he gives them the odd shout out. That's what he does. And anyone that stands against him, he sends threatening private messages, or he gets other people to start threatening them. Not physically or anything like that, but multiple journalists have called him out over the years, and they've received the same type of direct message, which is this smarmy attempt to be friendly, but with this underlying threat of, I could basically destroy you and your career. One of his favorite things to do when attempting to show evidence of his contacts is he offers to send you screenshots of WhatsApp messages, which is what he did to me a few years ago. So I said, fair enough, send them on, son. So he did. He very clearly, and we know he has multiple phones because we always see pictures of him with multiple phones. He very clearly has 2 WhatsApp accounts and just creates conversations, changes the name and sends things over and back because the cadence and wording and pidgin English is exactly the same in both. It's utterly pathetic. It's utterly pathetic. What's also not known is that it's not just Fabrizio on that account. There's 3 or 4 other people that tweet as him, which is how that account is basically able to churn out crap 24/7. That and, yeah. So there you go. Cristiano Ronaldo has been banned for 1 match for provoking fans following Al Nassr's win over Al Shabab. Al Shabab fans chanted Messi, 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 and Cristiano made a gesture. What a sad little man. Speaking of sad little man, Erik ten Hag is crying again. And he says Fulham should apologise for posting a video on TikTok that appears to mock Bruno Fernandes. The video shows the midfielder go down and clutch his leg before swiftly getting up again during United's 2-1 defeat by the Cottagers. The clip is dubbed with jaunty music and captioned, "So glad he's okay." This is not mocking. This is pointing out that your club captain is a cheat. But I think Fulham should apologise. And I'd like to pitch my idea for an apology video. So it's a black screen and the words "official apology from Fulham FC" come up on the screen. And there's some atmospheric, momentum-building music playing in the background. And overlaid on that is the audio of Conor McGregor's interview when he won the lightweight world title against Eddie Alvarez, where he starts to say, "I'd like to apologise." And then it cuts to the clip from Father Ted when Father Jack is apologising and taking the piss out of the person he's apologising to, which is Bishop Brennan. But just before he finishes saying sorry, it cuts to footage of Fulham's goal, winning the game at United, overlaid with McGregor's to absolutely nobody, and then some really epic music hits. That's what they should do. That's what they should do. Properly thumb their nose at this crying fool. Moving on, gossip. Liverpool have submitted an initial request to Bayer Leverkusen to speak with Xabi Alonso. Possible. Tottenham are targeting a wide forward this summer with Eberechi Eze and Pedro Neto currently the 2 main targets. Eberechi Eze is not a wide forward. He's a midfield player, really. Manchester United will make a decision on Mason Greenwood by the end of May. I just can't see how there's a decision to be made. Arsenal, Manchester United and Chelsea are interested in signing German goalkeeper Dejan Ramaj of Ajax. He's 22. He's pretty good. You'd give him credit. He's pretty good. Kind of looks the part at Ajax. I think he needs more time there before he moves on, but, Dele Alli's Everton career could be revived later this year as the Toffees are open to handing him a new deal. I suppose the likelihood is that the money they owe Tottenham, based on, I think it was like, if he plays X amount of games and then X amount of, I think that was all contractually agreed to the first contract. So he does sign an extension that probably removes that. But Dele signed for Spurs over 2 years ago, January of 2022. And he has played a sum total of 13 games, 11 in the back half of the 21-22 season, and 2 games since. He had the loan at Besiktas, which didn't really work out. I remain a big fan of Dele Alli. I'd love to see him back playing. I just don't think Everton's the right place for him. South Korea forward Son Heung-min is happy at Tottenham with formal talks on a new contract set to get underway. Makes sense. He's the club captain there now. Joan Laporta would welcome Xavi staying in his role as manager of Barcelona and reversing his decision to leave at the end of the season. Again, it makes sense. They're struggling for cash. They probably can't afford a buyout for a manager, so they would rule out the likes of Amorim, Alonso, De Zerbi, and anyone in a job. But maybe Nagelsmann. Liverpool will look to sign Brian Mbeumo for a bargain price if the Bees are relegated. Yeah, if they're relegated and he's available cheap, I'd imagine, but otherwise I just don't see it. Portugal forward Rafael Leao has been linked with Barcelona, but says he can't leave AC Milan. Okay. Jorginho could return to Serie A this summer when his Arsenal contract expires. Arsenal will probably try and re-up him for another year. Saudi Pro League clubs are targeting a number of Premier League stars in the summer, as well as younger players such as Argentine 20-year-old forward Matthias Sula, who's currently on loan with Frosinone from Juve. Juve should be getting him back and getting him integrated for next season because I think he could be a star for them. Saudi's second-tier side, Al-Quadza, I don't know, made a lucrative offer to Sergi Roberto, but the Barcelona captain would prefer to move to MLS. I wonder which MLS club he would prefer to join. Michael Edwards would want complete control before considering a return as Liverpool sporting director. Well, he wouldn't be sporting director. He'd be sporting CEO. Brighton will receive a record fee for a 14-year-old after a tribunal ruled Chelsea must pay up to 4.25 million for England under 17 striker Shamara Mweka, who is currently 16 but was signed by Chelsea in 2022. I mean, that is ludicrous, but very Chelsea at the same time. Very, very Chelsea. Let's wait and see if he ever makes a first team appearance. He does look good in the England underage games that I've seen, which is about 3. He does look like a real talent. But between him and Zach Sturridge, who's the other player that Chelsea signed from Brighton, from their academy in the summer of 2022, who's currently out on loan he's not currently out on loan. He was out on loan at Peterborough and wasn't getting regular game time at Peterborough. They're going to have to pay 7 million. 7 million for 2 kids. One is 16, the other's now 19. And there's no guarantee that either of them will ever play for Chelsea's first team. That's absolutely bananas. That's it, folks. I will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.